everyone, I'm John Lynn, the founder and chief editor at Healthcare IT Today. We're excited to bring you another in our series of interviews with top leaders in health IT. And we're here at the Okta conference, and our guest is Sandeep Kumbhat. He's Field Chief Technology Officer at Okta. Welcome, Sandeep.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for hopping on. I'm excited to have you in my hometown of Las Vegas. We got some interesting topics to talk about, but before we go there, tell us a little bit about yourself at Okta.
Absolutely. Sandeep Kumbhat, Field CTO, as John said. I take care of our product and field growth, and specifically our top global customers.
Nice. And a little bit about Okta?
Sure. Okta is an identity and access management company. We specialize into identity security.
Okay. And tell me, how are many healthcare organizations suffering because they have a poor identity management solution?
I think it goes back to the history, how this started. Everyone starts with an awesome patient experience. They don't care about how they're getting in and out. And that's where people get lost a little bit. Should they focus on the patient experience or the security and identity? And that's where we come in.
That's interesting. I think you're right. It is about the patient. It's not about the identity.
Exactly.
But, I think identity impacts the patient experience, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It means you think about the affiliates, your patients, and your even clinicians. If they log into a system, it should be frictionless, number one. But it should be secure enough so that you don't breach any of the security and healthcare standards.
Interesting. I want to dive into more of that, but tell me, what would a best-in-class identity management solution for healthcare look like? What does it need to include?
There are a couple of key tenets which you need to consider when you're designing a world-class experience for healthcare. One, it should be secure. It should be secure so that the patient data and the clinical data both are secure from a data security perspective because it contains a lot of protected health information. That's one. The other one is it should be frictionless so that people can come in for the first time when there's an open enrollment, and they can come in and log back in when they need to use the service from a provider perspective. So as frictionless you can make it, but making it more secure from a password-less experience perspective, that's an ideal combination. Typically what we are seeing is people do have still the username and the passwords, and passwords are susceptible to a lot of attacks and security issues. So that's where I think we would advise the industry to focus more towards password-less experiences, and that's where I think bootstrapping a very secure and frictionless experience begins.
Yeah, we got to talk about that, but you mentioned two interesting things, and we see this a lot in technology, that there's security and there's frictionless experience, patient experience, which sometimes feel at odds. Can we have security and a great experience?
You certainly can, but you have to also think about how much of the tech debt healthcare organizations are carrying. You look at certain events like we did a mergers and acquisition kind of a thing with our company, and now we are ending up with multiple clinical systems. Then you're also ending up with multiple patient care portals as well. So when it comes down to organizing and managing these identities, you need to make sure that you are centralizing these from an experience perspective, not centralizing the physical identities itself, but centralizing the experiences so that when a patient comes in and accesses either of your patient portals, they should have a seamless access out there from an M&A perspective. The other aspect is telehealth is on the rise. So if you look at all the other clinical systems out there, they will all come in and offer you certain services which you can take it from your home. So the experience should be frictionless from an onboarding perspective. You're not going to show your driver's license or your proof of identity, which is going to be, sometimes you often go and give it over to your person whom you're meeting at the healthcare or the hospitals. So here's where you need to do a remote identity verification as well. So that's where I think people are still dealing with how do we take care of those identity verifications, identity proofing, and secure digital onboarding, digital identity onboarding, which is not just frictionless, but also secure enough so that we don't have to do it for the patients and the clinicians like again and again.
I mean, you hit right at my experience. I actually had a situation where I lived in Vegas, but I went to healthcare in Utah, and when I went to their portal, they had a separate login for Utah and one for Nevada. And I was like, which one do I go to?
Exactly.
I didn't know.
Exactly, and that's the moment when a lot of account takeovers happen. That's the main reason why we see a lot of cyber attacks growing in the healthcare organization, because the digital identities and credentials are well spread out, and it gives an opportunity for the cyber attackers to just attack those opportunities out there. You have to give you a stat, just within Okta's customer base, it has been 200% the attack frequency from the last year itself. So if you look at the attack frequency, you look at the regulated industries like healthcare, it's even more because that's where the crown jewel information is.
Sure. It's worth a lot of money. You know, I was just on with a CIO and he said he had 900 different systems, and this was one that had consolidated a lot. So, you know, like, he was like, I only have 900 systems. Talk about that, right? Because you're right, consolidations happened and, you know, there's this proliferation of systems. Is true single sign-on and kind of this universal login possible in healthcare, and what does it take to get there?
Yeah, I think there are certain aspects. One, the digital or the EHR applications which have gone digital, they offer a variety of experiences on your mobile, which is an iOS or Android app. You need to secure those experiences. They carry their experiences from the microservices world, which is sitting at the back end. So when you provide single sign-on, you need to provide the security for the APIs, which is accessing that healthcare data. And you also need to secure the patient portals when people are just going directly to the web. Single sign-on is when you log in once, be it password-based or be it passwordless, it needs to sign you in once and establish your session with all the applications out there. The recent experience which we have seen is people are all accessing it via their mobile apps, and that experience needs to be seamless. So typically we have seen mobile apps from a single sign-on perspective is easier to achieve because you have one app and you can achieve single sign-on for that entire app. But it does require folks to actually pay a very close attention to all the backend services to be unified and protected with a single authorization server. So yes, it is definitely feasible to your question, but definitely requires the IT and the digital identity folks from a patient care perspective to take effort and unify those services so that identity can act upon it and provide you single and seamless experience.
Yeah, interesting. You know, you mentioned passwordless approach. Larry Ellison famously said that Oracle's going to a passwordless environment, which I thought was really interesting at Cloud World this year.
Yep.
Can you really create that passwordless environment, or is that just a pipe dream? It's something nice to say on stage, and what does it take to make passwordless a reality?
Absolutely. So two sides. One for the internal folks, like the nurses, the staff who is coming in, they have a passwordless desire as well for best employee experience, which they can get from a healthcare organization. From years, there has been a tap and go experience for healthcare. And while it's amazing, but it requires a lot of physical card onboarding as well as distribution. If there are visiting folks out there from a hospital perspective, you need to onboard them as well, and not just onboard, but offboard them as well. So now there have been advancement in technology where you can just have a facial recognition for folks right on site so that they can onboard and offboard very easily. They can go from station to station or kiosk to kiosk from a healthcare perspective and easily sign in over there. So it not just provides a biometric way to authenticate and do passwordless authentication, but the onboarding and the offboarding process becomes easier as well. So that's your internal clinicians.
You don't forget your face at home either.
Exactly, exactly. And no one can steal it. So that's one thing. The other thing is about the patient portals. And the experience for patient portals is something which, how people want their experience similar to Amazon's. So you go in, you sign in, you should already be signed in, but if there's risk high enough, then you get challenged for a biometric authentication. And with the help of all the advancements in all the biometric technologies on your phone or your mobile device, you should be able to sign in straight with that, get challenged again if there's enough risk, or you're trying to view a lab data, or you're trying to book an appointment, or you're trying to check in into your appointment. All those events should be monitored and audited, but at the same time should be protected with a single credential for the device. Interesting.
It really is a different way of thinking of authentication based on risk.
Yes.
I think that's the evolution of login in this passwordless environment that's interesting. You know, I was fascinated that Okta integrates with a lot of EHR vendors. Epic, I know, Athena Health was listed. You know, what does an EHR integration with Okta look like for clinicians?
Yeah, great question. So typically there are two major EHR systems which are Epic and Cerner, and those are massively spread out within the US. So our integration focuses on automating the onboarding and offboarding for those EHR systems. We have world-class connectors from our partners as well as our own, which helps you onboard using an automated workflow technology. So let's say the user gets hired in an HR system. The identity flows into Okta, and Okta provisions those identities and manages those entitlements for those EHRs using a workflow technology. So with that, if the user does get offboarded or the employee gets offboarded from a system or their role changes, they get deprovisioned, then automatically that event flows in, and within few seconds, all of the events will change the event category and the entitlements for the end user.
Wow.
That unifies the experience for EHR as well as the employee or the patient care onboarding.
Interesting. So it's all pulled from the ERP or the HR system to be able to do it. I mean, it's one of the biggest security problems in healthcare is your login never gets disabled, and then it just sits out there as a ghost login that anyone could hack or do whatever else with it. That's interesting.
Yep.
How about from a patient perspective? You know, is Okta doing EHR integrations from the patient side as well?
Absolutely. So EHR systems for the patients is a little bit easier because you typically get something like Epic MyChart as a web application which is exposed to the user. So you go into your mobile app, you get a credential, hey, you use this credential to log in, but your access may be limited. So what Okta helps with is secure proofing of the identity before they can sign in and get access to more sensitive data from your own records perspective. And that secure onboarding can be using an identity proofing technology, which of course are available in plenty, but then you integrate with the workflow so that when the user comes in, they can onboard their identity with a proofing methodology, maybe a driver's license, maybe a wallet, which is out there, which confirms that you are the one whom you claim to be. And after that, you set up a passwordless authentication for your own self and also set up your family members. So with that process, you get a seamless onboarding from an identity wherever you are. You don't need to come to the hospital. You can do a secure onboarding from your home or wherever you are, and then get access to MyChart. The access depends on what kind of enrollment or what kind of membership you have had with the provider, and based off that, we actually provide entitlements for the end patient.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, I think we all know how we log into the portal. We reset our password each time because it's been a year since we
Exactly. And you have,
unless you're a chronic patient.
Exactly, and you have variety of patients out there. You will see some of the young adults who will be accessing, they need a very different kind of an experience, which should be modern. And you also would see people who are grannies and your dad and mom who are not used to all of the technology around there. So how do you simplify the account recovery process for them? They may be coming in maybe regularly, or they may be coming in after a while. So you need to have a very secure recovery process as well for the people to come in and not call help desk to reset their credentials.
The worst thing for everyone. I mean, for both the system and the patient that has to call in.
Yeah.
What do you see as kind of next for Okta? I mean, you're deep in identity management. What's coming next? What should we be looking at and thinking about?
Yeah, absolutely. There are a few things which we're striving to do for not just healthcare, but other organizations as well. Number one is, we talked about the onboarding process of an identity, and during the authentication, you get challenged with a multi-factor. What happens after? What happens to the session which you already established? Can that be compromised? Yes, we have seen a huge surge in attacks coming in for your identity, which is sitting on your mobile device, or you're logged into a kiosk and the session is susceptible. So the security which we aim to provide to all of our healthcare customers and others is protecting against those account takeovers, malware and phishing-based attacks which originate from your device. You may be accidentally clicking on certain things which may be taking away your tokens. So there needs to be security for the users after they have authenticated and authorized themselves from a device perspective. That's number one. Number two, from a patient care experience standpoint, you may be coming in after a while. You may have done the enrollment, but you may have never used the service. So how do we make sure that your returning experience is as smooth as possible so that you don't get away to using shortcuts to get to the service or call help desk and get frustrated because you are in the need to access that service at that particular moment. So self-service options for the end users and for the patients and their families so that they can access those services as easily as possible. The other thing is about authorization. A lot of times you don't get access to certain services because, hey, that's a sensitive information. We can't give you access because we don't exactly know who you are behind the device. So those authorizations to be controlled in real time and taking care of those security entitlements is something which we strive to improve for our healthcare providers, insurance services, as well as health tech organizations. We are working with organizations like Cigna and Siemens and Dignity Health and a lot of these leading healthcare organizations to see where these clinical systems are growing and going to be from a patient experience standpoint, and working with them to improve those experiences from a security standpoint.
That's awesome. Well, I definitely have known about the identity management challenges in healthcare for a while, but I appreciate you having me here at Octane to learn more about what Okta is doing with all of the different healthcare organizations and improving the experience. I know nurses, doctors are sick of logging in, so let alone calling the help desk to have their password reset so they can actually do their job. So
absolutely. Wouldn't it be cool? One day we actually. Whenever, if we have the need to actually go for annuals or whatever, the nurse comes in and they basically just do a watch tap and they sign in, and you are able to view your own records just using your device with your biometrics and nothing else to be done.
Yeah.
So that's the experience we are striving for. So thank you, John, for having me.
Well, the amazing thing is the technology's there. We could do all of that, right? The nurse walks into the room. I could walk into the room. It could see me with a camera and identify me as a patient and pull up the chart. I mean, all of this automation's available. I think we just need to sync the systems together.
Absolutely. You got it. John,
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Sandeep, I appreciate you taking time to talk with me and share these insights and perspectives.
Pleasure.
And thanks everyone for watching and listening. If you want to find more great healthcare IT content like this, be sure to check it out at healthcareittoday.com or search for Healthcare IT Today on your favorite podcast applications. Thanks, Sandeep.
Thank you.